Hey everybody, and welcome to today's Inventables Easel feature launch event. As many of you know, I'm Zach Kaplan, founder and CEO of Inventables.
And I'm Ben Sachs, Senior Software Product Manager for Easel, and we're really excited that you're joining us today.
So Inventables is now a remote-first company. We have 15 states where we have employees now, and this event is coming to you live from 4 states. We're hiring about 30 people this year, so please check our job postings on inventables.com/careers. No matter where you live, we're hiring in your area. So this is our 3rd live event. The last 2 times we've come together, we've shared our ambitions to help you earn income and build and scale your business without having to become a technical expert in CNC. At Inventables, we're investing in your growth. And today we've got 2 exciting announcements. One is updates on some new Easel Pro functionality. And 2, we're announcing a second contest with prizes to help you build or scale your business. Now, before we get into all that, I do have another exciting announcement. Last week, carve Pro started production, and we're excited to announce we will start shipping to customers this week. This picture is actually from this morning in our warehouse, carve Pros that are being checked out and being shipped out to customers. We are going to have a live event dedicated to the hardware updates and carve Pro that's going to come a few weeks from now. So as we're going through today's event, please type any questions you have in the chat about Easel and Easel Pro, and Armani and Henry will answer as many as time allows. Now, let's go hear a little bit more about all these awesome Easel Pro updates from Ben.
Thanks, Zach. First, I want to talk about the differences between Easel and Easel Pro and how you can start a free Easel Pro trial. Next, software engineer Neil Pankey is going to introduce some new functionality and updates to Easel Pro, which will help you save time, prolong the life of your tools and bits, and make Easel even easier to use. Finally, Inventables community manager Brandon Cullum will share the details of our upcoming contests and moderate a live Q&A. Let's get started. As many of you know, Easel was created to let anyone design like an expert without needing CAD/CAM software experience. And for those who require greater functionality for your business, Easel Pro is our subscription software with additional tools optimized for a more efficient workflow, saving business owners time and helping you make more money. And since launching Easel Pro 3.5 years ago, we've seen our customers make some really incredible products. Customers like Ethan Kinney of Charred Chisel. Ethan makes custom burned wood signs and flags. He's had an carve for a few years now and has shipped hundreds of his custom products to customers. And he relies on Easel Pro to help streamline his design and manufacturing process. Here you can see some of his beautiful signs with incredible contrast. Check out Charred Chisel on Instagram. And here's some of his very happy, satisfied customers with their products. We've worked really hard in the last 2 months to add a lot of new functionality to Easel Pro. And today we're going to share some of those updates, which focus on improving your carve times and making carving much easier. That could help you build your next great product and scale your business much faster. So I'd like to introduce software engineer and fellow maker Neil Pankey to tell you more about our improvements and updates that go live today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Our most popular Easel Pro feature is V-carving. And one of the common issues we hear from customers is that oftentimes with complex V-carve designs, it can result in suboptimal toolpaths. As you can see in this image, there's a lot of green lines crossing over the material. Each of those is a rapid motion where the bit retracts and moves to another part of the design to continue carving. These seemingly random movements can lead to unnecessarily long carve times. So we've made a few fixes here that will drastically improve those. But before I get into that, I'm going to toss it back to Ben, who's going to give a quick Toolpath primer.
Great. Thanks, Neil. So first we want to know what toolpaths are in Easel. The general idea is a toolpath It's a path through space, the X, Y, Z coordinate plane in your machine, that the tip of a cutting tool, like your V-bit or your end mill, follows on its way to producing the desired geometry of the workpiece. So in Easel, you take the design, and Easel applies these tool paths to your design to create a finished part. In Easel, there are 4 basic types of tool paths. You can cut a profile inside of a shape, a profile outside of a shape, or a profile on the shape. And then as well, you can cut pockets. And in Easel, you can cut offset pockets. With Easel Pro, you can cut raster pockets in the X direction or the Y direction. So now let's hear from Neil about some more of our improvements on toolpaths.
Thanks. So as I mentioned before, we've been focused on trying to improve how we can better optimize toolpaths in Easel. And so over the course of the last few months, we've actually made 2 major upgrades in the way toolpaths work, specifically around some of the heuristics we use to order where your bit moves when carving different parts of the design. As you can see on some of these images here, these are showing both the before and after, where there's a lot of green lines that zigzag across the image in the before pictures, and then in the after you can see that it's a much more clean looking pathing that it's doing. So we've actually made 2 changes here though. One is in what we've called our cleanup paths in Easel, and that's when we need to go and route out any like acute corners that need a final cleanup to get a nice crisp finish and look. This change we actually shipped a couple of months ago, so you may have already noticed that some of your projects, if you carve them over and over again, have magically gotten faster. We've made an additional change to the remaining portions of when doing V-carving that we're shipping today and should be live now, where you'll see that through the entire V-carve pass, you'll get a much cleaner, faster, less rapids happening during your carves. And these are what the final images represent that you've been seeing on the screen.
That's great. So Neil, how much time would this save for my next carve?
So we've tested a number of real-world customer projects. On some of the more like the larger and complex design, we've seen savings upwards of an hour on what would have previously been a 5.5 to 6 hour V-carve time, so down into the 4.5 to 5 hour range. So that's a big savings for customers.
That's great. So that means I can make more carves in a day. Can I use the same cut settings, same bits?
Yes, so this should be all transparent. Like you don't have to make any changes to get to these improvements if you're using V-carving. They should just happen automatically. You'll be able to use your same cut settings. This change mainly focuses around the reducing the amount of time the bit is traveling in the air and the amount of distance it's traveling in the air. It's still going to be making all the same carves and like cutting through the material as before. It's just we can more intelligently move from one part of your design to the next to drastically reduce the carve time.
That's really great. And what about the quality of the carving?
The quality should be identical as before, since this is purely about optimizing where we move in the when going from one part of the design to the other, so reducing the amount of time the bit is traveling in the air.
That's great. So just to recap, with these new improvements, we're seeing certain projects that use a lot, that are very complex, have a lot of geometry, with up to an hour of saved time, over an hour of time saved, and 20% faster on a total time of carve. So that's a pretty astonishing time savings, and we'll show you later today what that means in your workflow in terms of production, what you can accomplish. So those changes make Easel V-carving with Easel Pro much faster. That means, again, you can spend less time watching your carves and more time planning your next design. and you can increase your profit margins by carving more projects in the same amount of time. So next up, Neil's going to show us some additional functionality.
Correct. Yeah, so now we've got, let's talk about safety heights. So one of the things we've also heard from customers is that having to change your safety height for the entire project can be problematic to avoid clamps. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually rolled out a new and improved way you can manage safety heights that you'll see in this video.
So another feature inside of Easel is the ability to set your safety height versus your origin safety height. And to actually get to this, you can come up here to Machine, go to Advanced, and then you're going to see the ability to modify these settings. Now, right now, I have mine set to 0.15 as my safety height, and we will get into what that means here in a second. And then my origin safety height is 2 inches. And if you hover over, you see a quick explanation of what that is. And basically, this is for the first and last rapid movements before your machine starts carving. So how this is really helpful is, say you have clamps that are holding this piece of material down. You want to be able to have a safety height that can get up and over those clamps, but when you're actually carving, especially V carving, you have lots of retracts where the Z-axis is going up and down. You don't want to still use that same safety height because you're already inside of it, so this is going to help you save time. So if we actually simulate this, you're going to see in the red, that is our toolpath, and you can see how this is going to work. So if we hit play at 1x, you can see we're starting at 2 inches. So the distance from here to here, that is that origin safety height. So then as we fast forward this forward, you can see all the other movements between the cuts. So these red movements are at that 0.15 inches. And then at the very end, it comes all the way back up to 2 inches to give you clearance over any clamps or whatever you have around your material to bring it back to the home position. So you can see this definitely helps with the speed. So you can see it's giving us an estimate of about 17 minutes. And this is actually with a 60-degree V-bit and then a feed rate of 90. Your plunge rate, that's really where this is going to impact it the most, because again, that's how much time it's taking to retract up and retract down. Now, if we go back in here and actually change this, I'll give you kind of an extreme example. Switch this over to 2 inches for our safety height. So meaning all of our retracts are going to be the same. And then exit out, simulate again. And you can see we went from 19 minutes to 28 minutes. Now, obviously this isn't something you would want, but if for whatever reason you needed those 2 inches of clearance to get into your material, before you would have had to do this. But now you can go in, change it up, and then you can make it whatever you want it to be for the actual safety height once it is carving. So let's talk about a more extreme example. This is a Marvel-inspired Aztec calendar that is from Sandy Egg CNC, and we have our safety height as well as our origin safety height set to 2 inches. This is a 2-stage cut, so that's why you're seeing so many colors, and then our retract rates are still 9 inches per minute between the two cuts. So as a result, you can see our first pass is going to take 17 minutes. That's with an 1/8 inch bit. But then the second pass, so all of the green tool pass you can see in the simulator are the V carve. And that is going to take 16 hours and 53 minutes if you had to set your safety height as well as your origin safety height to 2 inches. Now, this is a pretty extreme example, but let's see what this would look like if we were able to drop down our safety height to 0.15 inches. Okay, you can see this is much faster. So we went from 17 minutes to 4 minutes for the first pass with the 1/8 inch bit. And then we went from almost 17 hours to 5.5 hours when we dropped that to 0.15. Again, another way to speed this up is to be able to increase your plunge rate depending on your machine. And then obviously, if your original safety height didn't need to be 2 inches, maybe it was only 1 inch, that's going to speed it up as well. But this gives you a lot more options to be able to speed up your overall cut, as well as keep the rapids going in and out of your cut safe. Okay, so those are cool. And that Marvel sign took me forever to carve out, which was a lot of fun. But are there other reasons why this is important?
Yeah, So not only does it make your carves faster, but it saves your clamps. So, there's a lot of ways that people can hold material to an X-carve, and one of those ways is using the blue tape and super glue trick, and that works really well for large pieces where you have like large area of material. But for small intricate parts, or if you're gonna use an X-carve that's upgraded or an X-carve Pro, you can run your machine much faster with much more advanced cut settings that are deeper and put more force on the material. In those cases, if you're running a machine like that, you really want to have solid work holding. So clamps are the go-to, and this allows you to run a file that has clamps and not have to worry about hitting your clamps, and also save time in the process.
Is there like an average time that we're seeing people? I mean, I had like 16 hours on there because that was a ridiculous example, but like, are we seeing like any averages from folks?
Yeah, so there's a slide coming up and it'll show it's anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes on a typical sign V-carving. And so, yeah, you figure 10 to 15 minutes is not a lot, but it does add up. If you're carving signs all day long, that's 4 extra signs in an hour that you can get just from this one improvement with safety height. And it also allows you, if you had some material maybe that your sign wasn't totally uniform, you could traverse over it and carve in a certain section and then traverse back out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Another thing to point out is that this is available not just in Easel Pro, this is available to everybody. So if you're an Easel user, the new safety heights functionality is available to you as well. So next improvement that we're going to show builds on the new safety heights feature, and that involves how retracts work in Easel, and it shows how a small change can have a big impact. So we're going to watch a video and learn a little bit more.
All right, so let's talk about our plunge rate and our retract rate on the Z-axis. So we have a really simple project set up. This is just a line that we're going to carve out with an 1/8 inch bit. And in our cut settings, you can see that we have our plunge rate set to 12 inches per minute. So this is how fast the Z-axis is going to go down into the material. Now, if we simulate this, you can kind of see what the toolpaths are looking like. And if we zoom in, the blue one, this is going to be your actual plunge into the material. So if we simulate this, so that right there, that was 12 inches per minute. And then as this moves across, it gets to the end, and then it's going to retract. And before, our retract and our plunge would be equal to the same thing. So both would be 12 inches per minute. But now we've made a change to where your retract is going to be equal to the maximum retract rate for your machine. So this will be the same as when you're jogging your machine around in the Z-axis, how quick it moves. So the retract rate for the X-carve is about 19.7 inches per minute, which is 500 millimeters per minute in metric. And this can make a big difference, especially if you're working with harder material or you have a thinner bit and your plunge rate needs to be even lower than this. This can really help you save time. Now, in this case, we really don't have a lot of retracts because I think this is just 3 passes, so it doesn't take a long time to get through the entire process. But if we come to a project that is a lot more complex, so in this case, we're doing this NASA logo with lots of retracts in there, then this can definitely help you save time. So even if you have your safety height set higher, so in this case, I think it's set to 1/2 inch, that's gonna help you save time as well because it's not gonna be using the plunge rate every single time. It's gonna go as quick as your machine can handle to be able to move to the next cut.
Awesome. So first, Neil, what's G code?
So G code is the instructions that Easel sends to the X-carve or X-carve Pro to actually control the motion of the machine. It's pretty much the standard for all sorts of CNC operations. So it's an old standard, but it's very reliable and pretty ubiquitous. And so it basically is a sequence of like instructions that say, move my machine from this XYZ position to this other XYZ position, which is what controls both the like carving motions and the retracts and the plunges and all sorts of motions you do on your machine.
Great. And so with this particular change, we changed the G1 and G0. Can you explain what that means? The difference between G1 and G0?
Yeah, so specifically here, we changed the where we're retracting from doing any retracts coming out of a carve motion into a rapid from a G1, which is the standard linear motion command, to a G0, which is generally your safety height or your safety or fast rapid motion command. So that will run at the maximal speed of your machine. So whatever you have your Z-axis like max speed to set to. So when retracting, now you can save a bit of extra time.
And if anyone wants to know what that Z-axis max speed, it's 500 millimeters per minute for Xcarve, and you can change that in your advanced configurator machine settings. So if it's going to make the machine move faster, is it going to affect my machine in any way at all?
No, it will not have any impact on your machine specifically. You'll just see it moving faster when doing the retracts.
Great. So, and do I need Easel Pro for this?
Yeah, this is a specifically Easel Pro feature and targeted at our entrepreneur and business customers.
Wonderful. So the next big improvement to Easel Toolpath involves plunge moves. And this is something we've heard from many customers about. In fact, I just read a comment in the chat on YouTube about it. So plunge moves happen when a bit plunges vertically into the material. And it's usually not great to plunge vertically with an end mill. Our CNC routers, we use spiral bits, either up spiral or down spiral end mills. They don't work as well drilling holes as drill bits do. So you can see the image here. The bit on the far left is an end mill that's kind of been burned up. It has some discoloration there. It might have plunged into material a little too slowly or too many times, and it doesn't do the job of a drill bit. We've heard about this. Let's watch this video and learn a little bit more about plunging.
Another feature inside of Easel is the ability to set ramping for your plunge cuts. And to show you how that works, so I've got this really simple example set up, and this is just a single line that is going down 1/4 of an inch, and we're using an 1/8 inch bit. And we're gonna simulate this really quick. And if I hide my material, you can see, because I have the depth of cut set to be that 1/4 of an inch, so it's going all the way down. So if we simulate this, it's gonna go straight down, across, come straight back up. So this is the plunge cut, and this is your retract. And for the plunge cut, it's going down straight, so it's really going down at an angle of 90 degrees in relation to the material. Now, what you can do is actually change that angle that it goes down, because traditionally these style bits aren't really made for drilling, like you would put on just a normal drill and you're going to drill a hole. These are made for moving side to side. So if you want to increase the life of your bit to keep it sharp, as well as limit the potential of it breaking and even get a stronger cut, then you want to use ramping. So if you come over here to cut settings, you can see down here at the very bottom that we have this menu, and you can either set it to vertical, which is what it is right now, or 5 degrees or 20 degrees. And that's the angle between the material and then the angle that it's actually going down. So if I set this to 5 and I hit simulate, and then it doesn't look like anything happened, but if I expand this over and hide the material, you can see now we have this 5-degree angle, and it walks back and forth so it can get down to the full depth. But you can see it comes in, and that is what changes. And then you can also do the same thing, but we can switch it to 20 degrees. And then if we simulate that, and you can see how that works. And the differences between these two is just the lower the angle, the less stress you're going to put on the bit. So this 5 degree, you're going to be going down not a ton. So it's going to be pretty easy on the bit. So this is a really good option, especially if you're doing harder woods or even you're doing soft metals like aluminum. And then this 20 degrees is a little more aggressive. So it's going to get down quicker, but it's still going to give you the benefit of ramping. So if you imagine this without it being cut, when this would initially just go straight down, the bits really don't have a good way to clear out of the material. But by ramping, you're creating a bigger groove, so the bits have a lot more room to eject, and the bit is not getting in the way. So be sure to play around with ramping, and you can change around these settings.
Wow, that's really exciting. Ramping is, again, something that people have been talking about for a long time, that they want an easel. So let's just reiterate real quick. Neil, tell me, so how do plunges currently work, and what were some of the challenges that we faced when implementing ramping?
Yeah, so plunges, given how Easel has historically generated toolpaths, plunges were basically a pretty simple way, because we could always just say, once we've generated all the toolpaths for the portions of your design, and we wanted to move from one area of the design to the other, it would be a simple, just like, okay, move from point A to point B, and then you could ramp directly down. Or ramp directly down, plunge directly down to the depth that you wanted to continue cutting at. Ramping requires a bit more of a change there, obviously, since you need to do a kind of either a zigzag motion, as you saw in the video from Brandon, or if you're doing a continuous like closed shape cut, you can ramp in a continuous motion and then continue around in a circle and then come back to the beginning and then clear out the remaining parts of the ramp. So it required a fair bit of changes to how we've traditionally generated toolpaths in Easel to get to the point where we could actually implement ramping on all the various types of cuts we support.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's very challenging when you think about ramping, because you can ramp in a straight line, or you can ramp back and forth in a zigzag, and you can ramp in a spiral. So there's so many different scenarios for how ramping gets implemented, and it all depends on your design. So in terms of the ramp slope, the materials dictate the slope. So in Easel right now, the way that we have it set up, we have sort of three options. There's a vertical plunge. There's a shallow slope, which is I think a 5-degree slope, and then a steeper slope, which is 20 degrees. And when you have a hard material like aluminum, or a really hard wood like maple or Ipe, any of those really hard woods, you want to have the shallowest ramp possible. If you have a soft material like pine, you can go with a much steeper ramp angle. And the same applies with bit diameter. So if you have a larger diameter bit, you can go with a steeper ramp angle. If you have a really small diameter bit, you should go with a shallower ramp angle. So Brandon, will you tell me a little bit more about the impact that this would have on, like on your machine or on tool life? What do you think that the impact of ramping would be for your production workflow?
The number of bits are broken because I have something set wrong on my ramp, and then it just snaps because it could drill straight down is not great, but actually having this is a good failsafe for that. But also it's just going to increase the life of your bit. Because you're using it like it's supposed to use. So it's getting into the right spot at that kind of crazy angle. And it's cool that you can set either 5 or 20 degrees, because even I haven't done a ton of metal stuff, but just being able to go really shallow to be able to get into something is going to be really, really helpful. Or if people are doing something crazy with really hard exotic wood, it'll be helpful too.
Awesome. So ramping is going to be launching into beta very soon, and when it does, we'll send an email to all of our customers. If you're not opted into our beta testing program, any user of Easel can opt into beta. All you have to do is go into your accounts tab in Easel and click to opt into beta. That's where we put all of our new features. Currently, tiling is in beta. Tiling is going to be released to GA in very soon as well. So ramping will be in beta, and you guys can test it out and give us your feedback on what works and what doesn't work in ramping in Easel. So with all these improvements that we've just seen to toolpaths, we also wanted to create a better experience for simulations and visualization in Easel. Using the detailed preview in simulating carve times, it's critical to most people's workflow, right? So you design something, you really need to see what it looks like before you commit to carving it. And we've heard from customers that having more control over the simulations would be useful for seeing any issues that come up with a carve before they get cut, or potentially to export an image to send to a possible client. So we're going to watch a quick video to learn more about how simulations work in Easel.
So once you get done with your design, you can use the simulation area to get an idea of not only what it's going to look like, so you get kind of this 3D model that you can move around, but also get an idea of how long it's going to take, as well as what the toolpaths are going to look like. So if you come down here and you hit simulate, then it is going to simulate. In my case, I have a roughing and a detail toolpath. So I have an 1/8 inch bit for my roughing and a 60-degree for my detail bit. And once it actually gets simulated, you can see there's a bunch of colors in there, but if we play it, you can see they're kind of color coded. So if we let this run, first you can see that we actually get a simulation of our bit. And so there is our 1/8 inch bit right there at the little shadow. And then the red, in this case, is for the first stage. And this is any time that the bit is moving, but it isn't actually cutting. You're gonna see it red for the first stage, and then there'll be a different color for the detail pass. But once we actually get in there and we start cutting, and then blue will actually be the cut pass once it gets going. And then for the detail pass, it actually comes in as green. And again, once it goes in, it's still blue, but the greens are when it's moving in between. So you can kind of get an idea of what those two tool paths are doing and get a really good visual. In this case, this is turned into a cone now that we're using a V-carve bit. But then down here, you are getting estimations on the time. So you're getting 11 minutes for our first pass and then 33 minutes for our second. And if we go in here and make any adjustment to whether to the design or to the actual cut settings, so let's say I come in here and I make my roughing pass a lot faster. Let's say we set it to 80. And then we hit simulate. Then you can see that time drop down to 7 minutes. So this is kind of a live update once you hit that simulate button. But another thing you may notice is after you've simulated it, maybe you just want to get kind of that detail preview again, and you don't want to see all of the toolpaths and the crazy stuff that's going on. So if you click this menu here on the bottom right, and you can actually show and hide different things. First, you can show and hide your material. So if you just want to see the toolpath and what it's going to do, you can see it right there. But you can also turn off the toolpaths. So then you get back to that kind of detailed preview that you had before you actually did the simulation. Or for whatever reason, you could just turn everything off. So you get those toggles right there to go in between. And then you get all of the playback commands where you can fast forward, change the speed, and kind of see how these toolpaths are going to work in the simulation. Now, another nice feature is you can actually see areas that are not going to be able to be carved because of your bit setting. So if I actually switch this away from a 60-degree bit and then just selected the 1/8 inch bit, then you can see all of those red areas are areas that are too thin. So they're going to be thinner than 1/8 of an inch. And so you will not be able to carve them out. So if we simulate it, you can actually see with the toolpath where it's going to miss. So those red spots are really good indicators that you're not going to be able to get everything carved out. So then you could go in and add either a smaller bit or you can add a detailed bit so you make sure you get everything out of your design.
Okay, so that video kind of showcased a lot of the changes we've been making to the Easel UI, especially in the 3D preview pane as it relates to a lot of the other changes we talked about earlier here. So the toolpath visualization toggles, the bit. My favorite change actually is being able to see the bit as it moves around and you play your toolpaths, because before it could often be pretty hard to see where the bit was or where a toolpath was if you just were trying to watch the blue toolpath line move around. But with the bit there now, you can actually see it very well. And so it's pretty it's pretty easy to see where in your carve things are going to move around. And another one of my favorite changes is the uncut areas. This is a change we've been trying to ship for a while, and they're finally going to get it out into the hands of customers, which is very useful, especially as you can see on this NASA design. Like, there would be a lot of places where you wouldn't carve if you were using a bit too large. So one other important note here is that these are also going to be released to all customers. So you don't necessarily need Easel Pro to see these visualization changes or the uncut areas.
Awesome. That's great. It's I find myself time and again going back and forth between changing a design and changing a bit and looking at what the detailed preview happens. The last time we had a live event, we talked about our increase in performance in Easel. So, we upgraded our servers. That means that the detailed previews are generating much faster. So you can go back and forth and make these changes and see them essentially in real time and be able to preview your parts. We have some stuff planned down the road for these how the visualizations work in terms of looking at, the roughing pass and the detail pass and looking at separating them out. So stay tuned for more information coming in the next little bit of time here about how we're going to further the improvements to simulations. And another thing which I want to point out to all users is that you should be able to see there's a new material in Easel, and it's pine. It's a really cool graphic that we put in. Pine is a material that is now new to Easel. So if you go in there and add pine as a material, you'll see a very beautiful rendering of pine that you can use on your next project. So with all this new functionality and improvements all combined together, we kind of wanted to know what the total effect would be on a real world project. So we talked to a customer of ours. His name's Henry Feldman, and we had him create this. You've all seen these images of the NASA sign, so here it is in real life. We wanted to have him create create the sign before all the changes, and then after all the changes, we're going to look at the difference between the two, the before and after. So here's a process. He's using Pawpaw's blue tape method. You can see the old Toolpath shows the one on the left. It shows the NASA, I believe that was cut out of some plywood, and the one on the right is cut out of a piece of solid pine. The quality is identical. Both of them are pretty much the same, but in terms of time, as you'll see on the next slide, the old Toolpath in terms of rapid retract speed and the updated safety heights and improved tool paths, you'll see an hour and 25 minutes was saved from this NASA sign. It's a pretty astonishing amount of time. Those are just based on the simulations, the simulated carve times in Easel from before and after. And you can see, while there's not a whole lot of visual improvement in terms of the green rapid moves, you can see there are significantly less green rapid moves that are on the right side, which is the new tool paths, than the amount of green rapid moves on the left side. So that means the bit's not going back and forth as much as it was before. So another case study is to bring it back to Ethan Kinney from Charred Chisel from the beginning. This is a sign that he had, and he used to use a third-party tool to optimize his tool paths. So he would take tool paths that were generated in Easel, send the G code to an optimizer, bring it back in. That was kind of a long, difficult process. So he ran this, one of his projects with the old settings, as you can see on the left there, with all those red lines represent the rapids, and it's just going back and forth between the top and bottom of the project. With the new tool paths, there's very, very few rapids. This saved over 30 minutes of carve time for this particular sign, this project. And since he's running 3 X-carve machines in his shop, he can do 2 to 3 more signs per machine per day. And that, and everyone says time is money, that equates to about $800 a day in additional profit that he can generate based on these improvements. So I think that's just really great to see those real world examples. So like we said, some of the functionality we went over today, it's only available with Easel Pro. Like we said, there's some things that are available for Easel, but some of this functionality is available only in Easel Pro. And for those of you who don't have Easel Pro, it's now is easier than ever to sign up for a 30-day trial for free. So you can go to Easel. If you already have an account, you just go into your account tab. If you don't, you can create a new account and start your free trial for 30 days. If you have any issues during those 30 days, you can reach out to our customer success team. We're basically standing by 24/7 via email and phone to to answer your questions and try to support you in your journey learning how to use Easel. So we've seen some of the amazing things that the team at Inventables has built, and we are really excited to see what you build with Easel. And before we head into the Q&A, there's just one more thing.
This is like when we need to do like our iPhone announcement or something crazy. But we are going to be giving away some really cool stuff because we're going to be doing another contest with you guys. So if you guys remember last time, let me throw a slide up real quick. We did our design challenge where you just had to use one of our cool Easel Pro designs inside of the toolbox there. But this time around, we're doing VCarve. So should be a link in this YouTube description, or if you guys are watching this after the fact, if you're watching an email, there'll be a link there as well. But basically all you got to do is just make a new design, and it has to use VCarving somehow, and then actually cut it out, take a picture and submit it. So pretty much kind of how we did it last time. But if you guys do that, then we got some fun stuff, including a new X-carve. So first place. Second place, you'll get a year of Easel Pro, and in third place will be $100 in bits and material. So yeah, so that is up there. Like I said, this should be kind of what you see, and at the very bottom, it'll give you a lot more details on how to enter. But yeah, we're super excited about all of these updates, and I think we're about to open it up to questions. So I'm going to throw it back over to all of us.
Yeah, so that's it for the presentation. We're really, I hope that you're all as excited about using the new Easel Pro tools as we are. And so yeah, let's take some questions. Brandon, you want to kick us off here?
Yes, and I think I can actually put it on the screen. Okay, so this is a question from Michael Davidson. He's saying, all great improvements so far. I have a question. Is it possible to make a G code, then use Easel offline to do the cutting? I moved out in the boonies. Yeah, and the internet is spotty. I totally get that. And it's not in good in the shop.
Yeah, great question. Short answer is yes. Neil, do you want to talk more about the offline carving mode?
Yeah, so this actually should just work for you. It can be a little not. It may not be the most intuitive necessarily, though. Right now, we could probably do some to make that more obvious. But if you load up your Easel project, or if it's a G code that you imported, or you just have an Easel project and generate toolpaths, you can load all that up in your house or your office or wherever you have your laptop. Get it ready to go, and then just take your laptop out to your shop and plug it in. So long as you don't need to like refresh the page or the browser, it should just be able to plug in and carve. And it should just work offline, since a lot of the actual functionality is built in the browser itself that we like implement. So, and even if you need to tweak your design, you can actually tweak your design in your shop, regenerate toolpaths, and then go ahead and give it a carve. So it should just work.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead, Brandon.
You got it. I was going to the next thing. You got it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I talk to customers all the time, and one of the things I hear about is that people typically have like a design computer that they use in their house or in their office, and then they have a shop computer that they run their machine with. And so being able to, to sort of separate those two functions is really nice. And for those of you who have shops without internet, you can load the file into Easel and connect it, and then carve offline. So that again, as Neil said, it is possible.
Cool. One thing with the Q&A, if you guys at Inventables in the chat, that helps us. But yeah, definitely ask questions if you guys have, especially about the toolpathing stuff. We would love to answer it. And we got a couple more questions coming in. This one is from MN Pinball. Ask, wouldn't it be the same amount of rapids and just be shorter distances of the rapids?
Yeah, that's a good catch. I probably misspoke on that. So it would be the same number of rapids. We were just doing a better job of ordering which parts of the design to carve in which order. So that would mean that like always trying to pick the shortest path possible. Not truly the shortest path, but we have a number of heuristics to try to like get close to the shortest path. And so yes, it would still be the same number of rapids, though just a lot less distance covered.
It's like we're fact checking as we go live. This is fun. This is from Freddie Sine. Anything you can add about tiling would be super awesome, especially when you're carving on long pieces or a whole image.
Yeah, that's a great point. Tiling currently is in beta, so if you have not enabled tiling, you can go to beta. I don't know, Brandon, if you can pull up your Easel instance, we can show people where that turned on. But our accounts modal in Easel, you can just opt in and select beta. Currently, like I said, tiling's in beta. Because the Xcarve Pro, as Zach showed at the beginning of the presentation today, is shipping, we plan to release tiling very soon to the GA, which means to everybody. So once tiling's out to everybody, it won't be in beta anymore, and you can check it out. It currently supports tiling on the y-axis, and for material, when your material is larger than your work area. There's a great video as well on how to use tiling that Brandon put together, so you can check that out. And I think Brandon might be able to put a link to that.
In the description.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you
yep.
search through some of the past Easel lives, we've done it. And Ben, actually, I'm gonna have to get you to help me. Let me switch it over real quick let me take myself off the screen. Where is it in here to opt in?
In the options. So if you click into your account, so just click into the Pro icon there, and then go to options. And if you're in beta testing, you have a little green check and it says you're enrolled in beta testing. And if you're not enrolled in beta testing, you can just click the button to opt in, and it'll allow you to jump right in there. So that's in your accounts modal. You can access that modal just by clicking the icon in the upper left corner of Easel.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, let's move right along. Some more questions. Again, if you guys have them, make sure and drop them into the chat. Okay, so this is I think from Digital Carve. Do you think ramping can create an extra load for any project? Sorry. I think that came through a little bit weird. Let me actually switch to another one real quick. Okay, so this is from PD Wood's work for newbies. Do you have a more detailed description of outside, inside, and on might be useful? And I think he's just talking about just the cut settings.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I saw that one come through. I think that's definitely a future video for an Easel feature, to just show a video what is outside, inside, and on the line. If you're not aware of the sort of the fine differences between them, essentially if you take a shape like this, the bit's going to travel on the outside of that shape, or the inside of the shape, or right down the middle of the line. So for those of you who maybe have experience using power tools by hand, like a bandsaw or a chop saw, typically you draw your line and you pick one, you measure, if I want to cut this board 10 inches, you draw a line at 10 inches and you say, okay, I need to cut on the right side of that line or on the left side of that line. With the CNC machine, we're giving you the precision to be able to pick whether you're going to cut on the outside or the inside or on the line. And why is that useful? Well, if you're going to do something like an inlay, for example, or if you're going to make a mortise and tenon piece of furniture, you want to be able to cut specifically on the inside or the outside of the geometry that you draw in order to get the shape that's cut the exact dimension. So it's a very good question, and I think again it deserves a video for us to dive into.
Cool. Okay, so this is coming from Ian Wagner. It says, when carving the line showing the new ramp feature, why does the toolpath go back to the start? So why does it go back and forth in that zigzag instead of just going straight down?
So this is an artifact of how we've generated toolpaths in Easel for a long time. This is actually something I'd like to keep, as we've been focusing more on toolpaths, this is one of the things on the list of things we're going to be looking at to try to improve, is to make Easel do a smarter job of when it's going from one layer to the next, connecting those layers in a more intelligent way, not just when connecting like two discrete different portions of the design. So this is kind of an artifact of a long-standing implementation detail, but is something we're going to be looking at improving.
Cool. Okay. So
I just saw chat come up. I just wanted to confirm that you can enroll in beta as a free user. So you don't need to be in pro to enroll in beta. But however, if there are pro functionalities that go into Easel Pro that are in beta, when we pull them out of beta, then you don't have access to them anymore. Just to clarify that.
Cool. Okay, so this is from Shane Jamerson. Does the ramp functionality work best on straight lines, or can it spiral cut a small hole to speed up cut times? Thinking about the cut times needed for making a big pegboard.
So it's can work on any style of cut you need. In terms of speeding up the cut times, in its current implementation, it's probably going to be about the same as if you were to use the drill-based approach, where it would plunge down slowly and back out to clear chips. However, as I alluded to kind of in the previous question about why does Easel not necessarily always pick the right starting points for, or what you would think would be smarter starting points when going from layer to layer. As part of improving that would actually lead to our ability to do a better job of creating basically a continuous spiral down a like a small hole, like a drill board, or like a pegboard, like you said. So this is definitely an area we're aware of and are looking into. So we'll keep you posted.
Cool. Okay, so the question that I flubbed over earlier was that basically asking is ramp, or if ramping makes your carves take longer if you're going to incorporate it.
It may have a slight increase in carve time, because you are going to have to travel a little bit farther when you're doing those ramps than when you're just plunging. And that's kind of where it's a little bit of a trade-off between getting crisper and better tool life versus for a little bit longer of a card time and kind of better chip clearance as well. I think overall, especially given a lot of the other improvements we've shown today, that with turning that on, you would still have quite a reduction in overall card time. But versus just doing straight plunges, it might be maybe on the order of a couple of minutes difference, depending on the complexity of the project. But it shouldn't be that much of a difference.
Cool.
Yeah, and also for we're leaving vertical plunging as an option in Easel Pro. So, if you had a file that was dependent on a lot of vertical plunges, like maybe you're going to make a cribbage board or something like that, the best thing to do would be to actually put a drill bit in and do all of your drill operations with vertical plunges, and then switch your bit to an end mill, for example, to cut out the cribbage board with ramp moves.
Cool. Okay, this is a good one. This is from RB. Woodwork, if we are grandfathered into Pro for free days, do we still get these improvements?
Yes, if you have free days, all of the Pro features are fully functional for users who have the 4 free days per month.
Cool. This was a question. Actually, Zach already answered it. Kyle Toth, who makes crazy things. If you guys haven't seen his channel, his vases are insane. Basically asking, does carve still work? And yes, it definitely does. There were a couple questions about the contest. So I think I might have put the date wrong, but basically it's a month from now, and I'll update that right before we go off of this. So it's like June the 3rd, I believe. You have to do it. And as of right now, it's open to the United States. But, so yeah, there's a bunch of stuff for that. If you guys, all the details should be in the description.
Hey, Brandon, on the fly here, do you think you could pull a photo of the last contest winner to give some people some inspiration on what won? We can maybe while you do that, we could take another question.
Yeah, sure thing. If you have a question.
Someone was asking about a pause resume function to change bits mid carve when experiencing a dull bit. You can pause. You can currently pause in Easel, and you can pause with the X controller, and you can pause with the X Carve Pro. And I'll sort of side conversation about the X Carve Pro for a second in Easel. Changing bits is a lot. Multi-stage carving and changing bits in the middle of a carve I've been using the X Carve Pro, works amazing. And so the controller on the X Carve Pro has the HMI controller has like these great buttons right in the front, which allow you to pause and resume your part. So you can definitely do that.
Cool. Okay, so this was the winner. Make sure this works. Yeah. So this is, even though it says it's me, I promise you I did not win the contest. They were having some issues submitting. This was actually from Judah Mills, and this was a science fair project, and they carved out this brains and the letters games and brains. But basically his mom said, you play too much video games, it's going to ruin your brain. And he was like, all right, I'm gonna do a science fair project. And I think he found that it doesn't. So anyway, but the cars were super cool. And so they were fun. But yeah, if you guys didn't know, let me back out of this. If you just look for the Easel Pro Design Challenge, if you just look at that and come down at the very bottom, you'll see lots of entries from our past contest. So we've got a lot of really good ones in there for inspiration. But the big thing is just to make sure you guys actually cut out your piece and take a picture of it, because we want to see what it looks like at the end.
So Brandon, I think we have time for maybe one more question if you want to pull one.
Okay.
And then I wanted to mention to everyone out there, there's a ton of questions coming through in the chat. We're not going to have time to get through all of them today. But there's a specific forum post on the Inventables community forum. It's actually bookmarked at the top in the banner of the forum. If we didn't answer your question today in the chat, go ahead and just ask the question again in the forum. Brandon and myself will jump in there with Zach and Neil, and over the course of the next week or so, we'll try to get back to every single question that's asked in the forum. As long as it's asked in the forum, we'll be able to answer it. The problem with the chat here is that we once the stream is over, we just can't physically get into it. So, but yeah, please make sure to ask those questions in the forum if we weren't able to answer them here today.
This one, just because they're saying how amazing I am, is the last thing we'll end on. I saw the amazing tiling video that Brandon made, and he was growing a beard. I had to shave for this event. But no, I pulled that up to say that normally we do these live streams most of the time on Wednesdays. And so I've seen several folks in here mention, are you guys doing stuff for beginners? So be sure and tune into this channel, because we're doing lots of live streams, and we're going over different topics, and we're doing it live, watching the chat. So those are always going, and we love for you guys to jump on. Also, there's going to be another product live stream coming up where we're going to be talking about the X-Carve Pro and some other things as well. They'll be happening pretty soon, so stay tuned for that as well. But yeah, any final words from anybody?
Yeah, I just want to, hats off to Brandon. He makes all of this work behind the scenes. Everyone who's watching this stream has been pretty seamless. We're coming to you from 4 different states, and we've got videos and screenshots and live demos of stuff. So hats off to Brandon. He's really the epitome of our community manager. He's pulling us all together here. So if you ever want to reach out to Brandon, you can do that on the forum. You can do it through Facebook, through comments, and just know that I take all of those comments and all those questions, and I take a look at them all. So if you have any feedback, bring it to us. We're really, that's our goal, is to make Easel better. So if you can bring us that comments and suggestions, it makes our job a lot easier.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we will see you in the future, either whether it's live or somewhere not live, because it'll be fun. But hope you guys had a blast, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, see ya.
Bye.